All right, so welcome back, everyone. For this deep dive, we're really getting into something I think pretty interesting.
Yeah.
At least I hope so. It's this concept of, well, you could call it dispassion.
Yeah.
Or Vairāgya in Sanskrit.
Yeah.
We're going to see how it all connects to happiness, and we'll be looking at, the Bhaja Govindam, a classic text for this kind of thing. Plus, we've got commentary from Adi Shankaracharya,
Right.
who you might know, that really influential Indian philosopher. But okay, so, I mean, let's be real for a sec. That happiness really mean we gotta, like, give up everything we enjoy?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? And what's so interesting about the Bhaja Govindam is it doesn't really it doesn't shy away from that. It paints this very vivid picture of a person who's renounced, all worldly possessions.
Wow.
Imagine just living with the absolute bare essentials.
Yeah.
No fancy gadgets, no like closets overflowing with clothes. It's kind of the opposite, wouldn't you say, of how we measure success these days?
I think you're right. It really makes you, think.
Yeah.
I mean, the text talks about, like, living in really simple places, maybe a temple, or just, under a tree, basic clothing, barely any possessions.
Right.
Almost sounds like a recipe for being miserable, not happy.
Yeah, I can see why you'd say that. But Shankaracharya, he comes in and he clarifies that, all these outward things, they're more like symbols of an internal shift.
Okay.
So it's not really about ditching your comfy couch.
So it's less about, like, actually having stuff and more about, like, our mindset.
Precisely. In Vedanta, and that's the whole philosophical system that Shankaracharya was,
Right. Yeah.
really big on.
Yeah.
This inner shift. It's about, how do I put this? It's about loosening the grip of our ego on things.
But wouldn't letting go of, like, all desires, wouldn't that just make us kind of passive? Like,
I see what you mean.
how do we have ambition or get things done in the world if we're not striving for anything?
That's a great question. And to really get this, I think we need to grasp this concept of samsara.
Okay.
So samsara, you can think of it as this cycle of wanting things, and never quite feeling satisfied.
Yeah.
It keeps us, like, always chasing, but never truly fulfilled.
Yeah.
So the idea in Vedanta is that true freedom, what they call moksha, comes from breaking free from this cycle.
So how do we, like, actually break free from samsara? Because the Bhaja Govindam, it has this phrase, sarva parigraha bhogatyaga, which basically means giving up, like, all enjoyment.
Okay, so that sounds pretty intense.
It does, like, really intense.
But Shankaracharya, the way he explains it is he focuses on the temporary nature of worldly pleasure. It's like, think of it like a sugar rush.
Yeah.
It's intense in the moment.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't last.
Right.
You crash afterward.
I'm starting to see the difference. Like, it's not about saying no to every bit of joy, but more like recognizing that lasting happiness, it doesn't come from, like that 10th slice of pizza or whatever.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Okay, good.
In Vedanta, true happiness, it comes from what they call jnana. You can think of it like that aha moment of really deep understanding. Yeah. Like knowing yourself, doing your core beyond all that surface stuff.
And that deeper self, that's what's called the Atman.
Atman, right.
So the idea is, if we understand our true nature, our Atman, we can tap into, like, a more stable kind of happiness.
That's the core idea. But then the question becomes, how do we actually cultivate this dispassion? Does happiness, does it just magically appear once we give everything up?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. It can't be that easy, can it?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, it kind of feels like you got to take this leap of faith, doesn't it?
Right.
Just let go of everything and bam, happiness shows up. There's got to be more to it, don't you think?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's not about magic or anything. It's more about shifting how we see things. Think of it this way. Dispassion, it isn't about, like, suppressing desires.
Right.
It's about changing our relationship to them.
Okay.
Becoming more aware of them.
So instead of our cravings controlling us, it's like we develop this ability to just, observe them. Like, we can actually choose how we respond.
Exactly. Shankaracharya, he would say dispassion helps us become less reactive to all the ups and downs of life.
Makes sense. If you're not always like worried about getting stuff or losing stuff,
right,
you're probably way more at peace.
Exactly. And when you're not, caught up in that constant striving, you actually start to appreciate the simpler things. You become more present, more grateful for what you already have.
It's like finally stepping off that hamster wheel of samsara. Right?
Exactly.
That we were talking about. You're free from that whole cycle of wanting, and then suddenly there's space to just, I don't know, enjoy the ride.
It's interesting, how relevant Shankaracharya's ideas are to our lives today.
I know, right?
Think about it. We are constantly bombarded with all these messages telling us to buy more, achieve more, look a certain way.
It's exhausting.
It is.
I mean, social media alone is it's like a 247 highlight reel of everybody else's perfect life.
Right. And that constant comparison, it just fuels the desires even more.
Makes you feel like you're never enough. You're always behind.
Exactly. So the question becomes, is all this striving for more, is it actually leading us away from true happiness?
It's like we're chasing this mirage of happiness.
Yeah.
It's always just out of reach.
That's a great way to put it. The Bhaja Govindam and what Shankaracharya is saying, they offer this different path.
Yeah.
It's not about denying ourselves pleasure or anything. It's about finding this deeper happiness that lasts and isn't dependent on all the external stuff.
So it's not about becoming indifferent to life.
Right.
It's more about finding this inner peace that can handle anything.
Exactly. Vairāgya, that dispassion, it lets you engage with the world without being ruled by it. You can still enjoy a great meal without stressing about calories. You can, appreciate a beautiful sunset.
Yeah.
Without having to take the perfect Instagram picture.
I can see that.
You're present in the moment instead of always chasing that next thing.
That would be so valuable, I think.
I agree.
To be able to cultivate that kind of presence. But I have to ask, if we let go of wanting stuff, does that mean we just sit around and do nothing?
Right.
I mean, is ambition a bad word now?
That's an excellent question, and it's one that Shankaracharya actually addresses. He wasn't saying we should just be passive or reject, all worldly pursuits. It's not about becoming ambitionless. It's about redefining what we're ambitious for.
So shifting our focus from external achievements to internal growth, instead of being driven by, I don't know, recognition or how much money you make, we could be driven by something deeper, something more meaningful.
Exactly. Ambition becomes this tool for self-discovery, for service, instead of just this ego-driven thing.
That's a really empowering way to think about it. Yeah. Instead of our desires controlling us, we can use that energy to create a life that's meaningful and fulfilling.
And that's exactly what the Bhaja Govindam is pointing to.
Yeah.
It's this path to happiness that isn't about getting more.
Right.
It's about becoming more.
Becoming more present, more aware, more in touch with who we really are.
Exactly.
Right. I like that.
It's a good reminder that, true happiness, it's an inside job. It's not something you just find out there in the world.
Right.
It's something we cultivate within ourselves.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of what it means to live a happy life, a meaningful life.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
The beauty of these ancient teachings is they're not just, these abstract philosophies.
Yeah.
They're actually tools for living a happier, more fulfilling life.
I think we need to help our listeners, though, make these concepts practical, to bring them into their lives, because it can feel overwhelming, I think.
Yeah.
To try and incorporate all this at once.
Right. It's good to start small,
Yeah.
What if we experimented with detaching from just one small desire, just for a day?
Okay, so could you maybe elaborate on that a little?
Sure. Think of something you usually crave,
Yeah.
something you feel really attached to.
Okay.
Maybe it's that extra cup of coffee in the morning, or checking social media every 5 minutes, whatever it might be. Just one thing.
So it's about making a choice, a conscious choice.
Yes.
To abstain from that thing.
Exactly.
Right. Not to punish ourselves or anything.
No.
But just to kind of observe what happens.
Right, exactly. It's like this mini experiment in dispassion.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
A mindfulness challenge. Yes.
Instead of just, going through our day on autopilot, we're choosing how we spend our time, how we spend our energy.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. A mini experiment in dispassion.
Yeah.
It's simple,
Yeah, exactly. It's not about making some big drastic change. It's more being aware of our habits and then just kind of gently challenging ourselves to step outside of our comfort zone a bit.
So by detaching from even one little desire just for a day.
Right.
It's like we create this space for something new.
Exactly. Maybe it's a moment of peace, a burst of creativity, a new appreciation for the simple things, or maybe it's just a feeling of accomplishment, like knowing that we're not completely controlled by our desires.
Right. It's empowering, isn't it?
It is.
Taking back control.
Choosing to focus on what really matters. It makes me think about something we talked about before, this idea that our culture, it glorifies ambition and striving.
Yes.
Like we're taught that happiness is always just right around the corner if we...
You just keep chasing it.
If we just keep chasing it.
Yeah.
But if we're always looking ahead to the next thing, how can we ever actually appreciate where we are now?
That's such a good point. We end up missing the present moment.
Totally.
Because we're so fixated on some future ideal.
Right.
And that's where this whole idea of dispassion really comes in.
It's not about giving up our goals.
No, not at all.
It's about changing how we think about what's important.
Exactly. Instead of being driven by needing validation from others or needing to be successful in a material way, we focus on finding that purpose and fulfillment from within.
It's about creating a life that feels true, authentic, not a life that's just dictated by what other people expect.
Right. That's the key.
That's a way more sustainable, way more fulfilling way to be happy, I think.
Absolutely. Than chasing something that you can never really catch.
This has been amazing. I feel like I understand so much more now about what it means to really live a happy life.
I'm so glad to hear that.
What I love about these ancient teachings is that they're not just, some philosophy floating around out there. They're like actual tools.
Yes.
For living a better life.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been a real pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
And with our listeners, of course. We covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from those stark images in the Bhaja Govindam to how we can actually use dispassion in our everyday lives. We talked about samsara, that cycle of always wanting more, and then moksha, that freedom that comes from breaking free.
Yeah.
We even touched on jnana, that deep knowing of the self, of the Atman.
Yes.
Which is really at the heart of Vedanta.
Yeah. And we challenge this idea that ambition is the only way to be happy.
Right.
And talked about how focusing on inner growth, on deeper purpose, that can actually lead to a more fulfilling life.
And I think most importantly, we gave everyone a really simple, practical way to start, to start living these teachings, that mini experiment in dispassion, letting go of just one small desire.
Just for a day, just for one day.
It's a small step, but it can lead to some pretty big changes.
Totally. In how we experience the world and how we experience ourselves even.
Absolutely.
So to everyone listening, we'll leave you with this.
Yeah.
If you were to try this mini experiment, what one desire would you let go of? And what do you think you might learn about yourself in the process? Remember, true happiness, you don't find it, you create it. And it starts with being aware, embracing simplicity, and connecting with that eternal truth that's inside each of us.
Until next time, everyone, keep diving deep and keep seeking wisdom.